welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I'm your host, Jason Verlinde. As always, that's John Rauhaus playing in the background. Thank you a ton for tuning in. I hope that everybody is signed up for our 2025 Fretboard Summit taking place in Chicago, August 21st to 23rd. It's going to be one for the record books, an incredible gathering, conference, whatever you want to call it, where you can geek out with us and some of our favorite musicians and contributors and brands on our favorite thing in the world, guitars. We have a ton of guitar history. We have a ton of authorities, including folks like Wayne Henderson and TJ Thompson and Mark Stepman appearing there. And we have a lot of fun planned. So I hope to see a bunch of you there. It's definitely not too late to sign up. Fretboardsummit.org. Space is extremely limited, and there's no other weekend quite like this that celebrates both new guitars and the boutique-made guitars, as well as old guitars. And today's podcast is a little bit about an old guitar. Specifically, we are talking about a 1955 Martin D18 that used to belong to Earl Scruggs. This is one of those only in Nashville stories. It originally was owned by Don Gibson. Then it was modified by Shot Jackson. Earl Scruggs played this guitar from when it was only a couple years old on, including on some pretty legendary recordings. And the guitar has a new owner, East Nash Grass's James Key. James got this guitar from Gruen. He put a ton of energy and time and money into having it restored properly. We talk about that. And we talk about East Nash Grass and how James formed the band, how he moved to Nashville. They've got a new record coming out in August called All God's Children. And it's just a great chat with somebody who's got a ton of energy and a great sensibility about bluegrass. We cover a lot, and I'm so glad that James took it upon himself to get this guitar playing again. We hear all about it. It's a great chat. Before I talk to James, please tell our sponsors how much you love them. They are Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar, the coolest guitar store around, right here in my backyard in Seattle, Washington. We're also brought to you by Stringjoy Strings, where if you use the discount code Fretboard, you'll get 10% off of your first order. They've got acoustic, electric, banjo, and mandolin strings now. They got the whole stringed instrument family. And we also, speaking of stringed instrument family, are brought to you by Peghead Nation, where you can learn pretty much anything that we cover here at the Fretboard Journal. Americana, old-time jazz, bluegrass, so much more, with some of the greatest instructors around, including many who've appeared in our pages or on this podcast. Go to Peghead Nation. You can get your first month free or $20 off an annual subscription with the discount code Fretboard when you check out. Or just go to pegheadnation.com and see all their free offerings. They've got a ton there, and it's a great way to kind of immerse yourself in what they're all doing. Those are our sponsors. Our summit is coming up August 21st to 23rd. If you want to register, go to fretboardsummit.org. Get in on the action. I'd love to see you there. And now let's talk to East Nash Grass's James Key. James, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jason. I appreciate it.
So I want to talk about your recent guitar acquisition. I also want to talk about this record you have coming out. Are you playing the Ryman tomorrow?
Tomorrow? Yeah, I'm not sure when this airs.
It'll be after the fact, but amazing.
Okay. Yeah. So it's Tuesday, July 15th, Bluegrass Nights at the Ryman.
And is this your first time there?
Fourth. This is our first night ever kind of having our own night. We were opening in other capacities, so we're very excited.
Okay, so if we're at the point in your career where you're playing the Ryman, let's go back in time. When did you find guitar? When did you find fretted instruments?
Technically, I guess about 27 years ago, something like that. I'm 37, and I started playing when I was about 10.
And was this a thing where you were exposed to it through your family or the music scene in your community?
Yeah. My grandfather played banjo, and he also played guitar. And he lived here in Nashville, and I lived in Chattanooga, actually on Signal Mountain. And when he would come to visit, he would go missing on Friday nights. And I started going with him and figured out he was going to this place called the Mountain Opry, which was a local little show and jam and so forth every Friday night for years and years. And that's kind of where I first got exposed to bluegrass in the late 90s. And I started playing in about 2000 or so, or maybe 99, I guess. I guess I was about 11. I started playing guitar, learned bass, then I learned mandolin, and then I learned banjo. It normally takes some kind of a family tie for somebody to get into something as niche as bluegrass. But that's how I got into it, and I just loved it. I loved the portability of the music. I loved you could kind of take it anywhere. Um, I was very drawn to it at an early age.
And then was it just bluegrass jams and festivals and getting immersed in that world before you find a band of your own?
Basically, yeah. I mean, at the Mountain Opry, they would have jams and a show. It was almost like an open mic. Sometimes it'd be a fantastic lineup of bands, and other times not as much. So there was plenty of opportunities for me to get to play as a young musician. I also sang in choirs. I sang in Chattanooga Boys Choir, church choir, and school choir. And so I was always singing, and then just the playing just kind of connected all of it. And I would just totally eat up with it through my teenage years because I was a very bad athlete and a very mediocre student.
Okay.
So when I was able to find something that I kind of took to naturally, I was thrilled, of course, because when you're a kid, it's like so much of it seems to revolve around like athletics, and if you're a good athlete, obviously you'll be very busy and you'll have a lot to do. So being a good musician, or at least having some talent helped me a lot to feel like I had a place.
Yeah. And in high school and, when you're a teenager, are you the only avid bluegrass fan in your peer group?
Or totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my parents were like, I think they were pretty okay with me running off on the weekends with all these, old men that were like the father and grandfather figures. So versus doing the normal things that teenage kids would do, like I was really kind of always an old man and still am, but especially in those days, like when I first started playing, we had these in the early 2000s, late 90s, there was this tuner called the IntelliTouch tuner that would clip onto your headstock. And I don't know if folks know, but it came with a little case with a belt clip, so you could clip that onto your belt. So I, of course, used that. And, so I'd have my tuner clipped on, pick pouch on the other side, I was ready to play some music. I was ready for action.
That's awesome. Sharing the tuner with all the old guys who aren't up to the technology.
Yeah. Cause mine's got fresh batteries in it. It's ready to go.
You knew what you were getting into. So when did Nashville enter the equation?
Well, I always kind of thought I would move here one day if I moved anywhere. Chattanooga was a great place to live. I lived there almost 30 years. And my family is actually from West Tennessee and then Middle Tennessee. So my parents just happened to meet in Chattanooga, and that's where they met. And my dad had a good job. And so we ended up just growing up there. My brother and sister had both moved away. And then my parents ended up moving to Georgia to be closer to my sister and her kids. And so I was the only one left in Chattanooga. And I don't know, a series of events happened, and I just decided that I wanted to be in Nashville, and it was the only other place I'd ever considered living. I already knew so many people. My mother's side of the family is right here in town. My grandmother lived here at the time. So it was an easy move, and it's 150 miles, less than that, actually, about 140 miles from where I grew up to here. And so it was just an easy thing to do. And I never regretted it one day. I felt immediately like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And I just decided not to put off. I was almost 30 when I moved here. I think I was 28, something like that. And I just decided to just go for it. And the moving here has been one of the best things I ever did.
Awesome. And you felt immediately at home in the bluegrass world there and the music world?
I did, because I knew so many people. My whole life I've been coming to Nashville and been playing the station in, and knew a lot of folks here and had a lot of good connections here already. So that made it a lot easier, and I don't know what it's like to move across the country. Some of my friends that moved here left their families and friends from a long way away to come here, and it wasn't the same. I still have the same state ID. I didn't even have to move states. It was so easy for me. So I did notice, though, that there was a few places for bluegrass. And maybe 15 years ago or so, I'd had some some friends of mine that were, professional musician colleagues that had left Nashville because they felt like the bluegrass scene was really underrepresented here. And so I don't know that I identified that as like my role, but I looked at that as like kind of something that I could help to facilitate. And I think we did, because we started playing at D's on Mondays, and they're still doing that. And that's where our band was born, essentially. And we also had a jam on Wednesdays at the American Legion that I was responsible for a number of years. That's still going on. And I feel like there's a few things that have brought some bluegrassers from across the country to move here, because there seems to be a little bit more of a scene than there was maybe 15 years ago. And as any big city does, like it grows and people have to move to where they can afford to. And Nashville, like 10 years ago was really affordable, and now it's a little less so. But yeah, I loved that people seem to move here for the love of music, not just bluegrass. If they're interested in like money and fame, normally they go to LA or New York or something like that. Not necessarily New York, because New York's got some really great, really great pockets of wonderful working musicians. But, people that really love the music end up in Nashville, I feel like.
So talk to me about D's and how, it sounds like you kind of were a community builder or kind of made something out of nothing in terms of like that night.
I had help. And so Corey Walker, our banjo player, and Harry Clark, our mandolin player, had kind of got that thing started. And Harry and I were bluegrass adjacent, didn't really know each other super well, but had been around each other a long time. And Harry brought me in. I was playing mandolin actually at the time, and he was playing guitar. And I don't know, it just, I noticed, that I would have people come to me and say, like, and I still see this. There's like people come to Nashville and there's like a discovery. There's no bluegrass on Broadway. And like, oh, well, there must be a hole in the market. It's not a hole in the market, man. The Broadway people don't give a damn about bluegrass. They want to hear Mustang Sally and Brown Eyed Girl and all that stuff, and nothing wrong with that. That is what it is. But there's a certain contingent of tourists that come to Nashville and they're expecting to hear that. And if you're down there playing bluegrass, they might ask for Man of Constant Sorrow, which they rarely ever will even name correctly. Normally they ask you to play Oh Brother. So it's like I did that a little bit, and I realized that wasn't a place. That wasn't a place that I felt like bluegrass had a good home. I can't get friends of mine or family or anybody to want to come down there. It's this whole ordeal to even get down there and park and so forth. And it used to be easier than it is now. It's really treacherous now. So I realized that Madison was kind of a neat little bedroom community that had a lot of history of other bluegrass musicians and artists living there over the years. I could name a lot. But there was something to that scene where I could get people to come out. And I realized Monday was a great night for that. Because I moved to town and I wanted to meet other musicians. And I realized that on the weekends, Nashville turns into a totally different place. And I really didn't get an opportunity to meet as many on the weekends because everybody's out working. Everybody's out touring or doing whatever. And then it turns into this tourist zoo that we've cultivated downtown. And, I'm not one to bitch. It brings billions of dollars in tourism revenue. I get it. But a lot of people like visit Nashville. They tell me, I meet across the country and they only go to Broadway and they feel like that's what all of us working musicians do. And it's such a small contingent of the working population of Nashville musicians. But I realized that Monday was an awesome night. And I was meeting all these great musicians and I was able to make friends with them. And I realized that was what I wanted to do, was to try to, because initially I moved here to network and, try to find a job doing really something other than bluegrass music, because I was kind of disenchanted with it. But that was the only work that I could get when I first moved here. It's all I really knew how to do, and only people that I knew. And everybody up here was just so good that it kind of reignited my love of bluegrass. And then East Nash Grass was born. It took a few years for it to kind of demand its own time and space. And eventually it did. And that's now it's all of our full-time profession. We have about 100 shows this year. Already been to both sides of the country, and we'll go to both sides again before the year's over.
So 100 shows in 2025. Does that mean you've got like a Sprinter van? Like, how are you doing this?
We did a few different things. We were flying a lot last year because everybody was, the logistics were a little bit harder. We're not flying very much this year. And yeah, we have a big van and a big trailer. And so everything goes in that. We got a big merch set up. If anybody sees us out on the road, we're really actually just a traveling t-shirt and apparel company that plays music.
That's the music industry right now in general, right?
Well, you have to supplement your income somehow. But I'd owned a few different businesses over the years and learned a little bit about branding. And so we kind of cultivated this logo branding with this lamb on it, this kind of mischievous cartoon lamb that has become, our business's logo. And so, it seemed right to just try to be able to expand on that and doing t-shirts, hats, koozies, CDs, so forth. And so, yeah, that's how we're traveling right now. Just beating up the road in a big van.
How did the logo, how did the mascot come to be?
My friend, I'm glad you asked. Not enough people ask me that. My friend Heather Mulder is from Woodbury, Tennessee, and she's a really talented musician and artist. She's worked for Hat Show Print for a really long time and still does part-time, but she's a really old school printer, logo designer, and she's also a great musician and singer, plays piano. And I had worked with her on a few different things, and I just thought that her work would be fitting for what I had in mind for this logo. And she just hit a real home run with it and made the logo maybe 5 or 6 years ago for us. And we did like one batch of shirts and they were really popular. And so that just kind of expanded into what it is now. And Heather actually she's got so many talents. She can do so many things. But she actually got a federal post office stamp last year. She designed the bluegrass stamp. So if you see there was this stamp that they commissioned last year that had a few different instruments on it. That was her work. So very, very talented artist. And I think she hit a home run on the logo for us.
So what were your other businesses that made you think like, hey, we're a bluegrass band, but we need like some identifiable merch?
Well, I started out in the landscaping business when I was in Chattanooga. And I just started mowing lawns in high school, and that kind of led to, me doing, full on landscaping and excuse me. And I had several employees and did everything from commercial to high end residential, and actually sold my business before I moved here. And I learned a little bit about logo design and naming businesses and things like that. And so, like, for example, my name is Kee, K-E-E. And for the rest of my life, I will say K-E-E when I say my last name, because no one ever spells it right, And so, like, for me, naming businesses, making logos, I'm really particular on having something that's easy to read, easy to see from far away, easy to print. It
Sure.
needs to be just a couple colors or whatever, and hopefully easy to spell. The East Nash grass is a little bit of a tongue twister, I think, for some folks. But I thought that was kind of fun. Corey actually came up with the name, and we just used it. And we had a few folks when we were first getting started that felt like we would be branded as a regional band by taking that name. But it didn't seem to be a problem for the Nashville Bluegrass Band when I was a kid. They were on everything, recording with everybody, winning Grammys, making really great music. And they have kind of retired now. And not that we're going to do everything that they did, but I just kind of looked at that as like a good business model. It's like, well, this is what's coming out of Nashville right now that's bluegrass. And so I liked that. And I thought, well, it doesn't confine me to a region. It doesn't mean that we can only play regionally with that name. So I liked it, and people seemed to like it. And we had all worked in what we kind of call in the business and bands. And there's nothing wrong with being in an and band. We've all been sidemen, and there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy it. Sometimes it's more fun to just be able to show up and do your gig. But I didn't want anybody's name on the front of this. I wanted it to be a band name and a band project, because if you have a name attached to it, when your audience who doesn't know you comes to see you, they're immediately figuring out, okay, which one is this person? And they're the and. Well, I don't want any of that. I want people that have never seen us to not know who the lead singer is. not know who the songwriter is, not know who the featured musician is. And then when they watch, they realize it's everything. It's all of us doing it. And then, one of the reviews from our last album that I felt like accomplished what we were trying to do said that East Nashgrass has no apparent leader. And that's where really great art is born. It makes things more difficult, no doubt, from like an administrative standpoint to run a business that way. It takes us a lot longer to make decisions. Everybody has an opinion, but you're going to get the best out of everybody. You're going to get their best songs, their best singing, their best playing, and they're going to feel like that they have more of a part of things. And so for creating the art, which is really the important part of what we're trying to do, I think that's what everybody in the band has in common, that we want to leave behind some good music that we can be proud of. And so we think about that more than we do the business side of things.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I was going to ask if this is a full-time job for everyone. If you're playing 100 shows a year, it has to be, right?
Yeah, we got asked that at a workshop in Utah in May. And I joke, I like to tell this story. I live out in the suburbs, and my neighbor, super nice guy, waters my plants and things when I'm gone. But we were pulling out one morning, headed out on the road, and I waved at him. I said, "Hey, man, we'll see you later." And we're headed out on the road for a few days. And he said, "A gun?" And I just thought, next time I see him leaving on a Monday morning for work at 5 a.m., I'm going to be like, "A gun? Really? Look at this guy, man. There he goes. What a workaholic." But yeah, you're right. I digress, but that, with 100 shows, it's hard for us to do anything else. And we do have each of us have our hands in a few other things, because the shows are typically coupled together. Yeah. We do a lot of 2, 3, 4, and 5 day runs. We've got a 3-week run starting next week. We will head out west for like 3 weeks. But there's still plenty of time off. We take the winter. We're going to take most of December. We only have one show, I think, in December. I think we're going to take January off too. That's what we did this last year. And there's weeks in between the tours too, where you've got some downtime, so that each of us can still do. Each of us records with other artists and has our hands in a few different things, as I mentioned. But the band is kind of everybody's full-time vocation.
Yeah. You mentioned a 3-week run. Is there a sweet spot there where like you've been playing day after day enough that you feel like you really have a groove and haven't burned out yet? Like, is there a perfect amount of time to be away from home?
To me, that's too long. I don't like doing the 3-week thing, but I'm not complaining. It's only like once a year that we'll do something like this. And the summer's a good time for it. And we're going to the Pacific Northwest in the hottest time of the summer. Tennessee is really hot in August and late July. So it's not a bad time to be going out there. I have noticed I've done the 3-week thing a few times, and I actually dislike the first week the most. The first week, it's like, man, this tour is long, and it's going to be a long time before I see my own bed and I'm at home. And then after that, it's like you kind of, seems to me at least, that you settle in and you just try to enjoy it and live in the moment. So, you know what, I'll probably remember this run for the rest of my life, or something that happened on it. And then it's enjoyable. But 3 weeks is probably the max number that I like to be gone.
So you have a new record, All God's Children. I want to ask you all about that and the title and everything. And that's why you're going to the Ryman, I'm presuming, tomorrow to celebrate the release of that and maybe share some tunes from that. But you just got a new old guitar. Mm-hmm. I want to get the story behind that.
Yeah. So, opportunity comes around only so many times. And I'd had a few instances in my life where I could have done something, could have made a business decision, could have bought this or sold this or purchased this at this given time, and didn't do it. And as I've gotten older and more experienced, I've kind of learned to trust my gut on a lot of these type of situations when you get in them, and not overanalyze it. And so since that had happened to me a few times, in February of 24, I was in Gruen's, and I actually went to go just see what they had. I wanted maybe another vintage guitar. I don't have a huge collection of instruments, but I wanted another one. And I went on their website and I saw they still had the Earl D18. I thought for sure that it would be sold because they listed it for sale and had it for, I think, the better part of a year. They had it for sale. And they were asking a pretty exorbitant amount of money for it on the front end. And just to be totally frank, the guitar was in pretty bad shape.
Just to pause, this is Earl Scruggs 19, it's a 50s D18, right?
55. Yeah.
55. Okay. Just so we know who Earl is. I mean, everybody knows who Earl is. Yes.
So the quick history on the guitar, it was a 55 Martin D18 that was first bought by Opry member Don Gibson. And Don took it down to Shot Jackson on Broadway, which is now at Robert's Western World. The upstairs balcony up there was his pedal steel repair shop and guitar hot rod center. And Shot did some cool things, and I won't speak ill of him because he was, quite a character, but he also did some repairs that were maybe a little bit sus. And, but the stars used to love to hot rod their instruments. They would love to put big, shiny pick guards and things on them. And, I don't know why Don did this, but Don had the neck thinned down on it, like a Telecaster. It's the thinnest D18 neck that you'll ever see, which I personally like. I don't really like the big. I don't like the wide neck. I don't like the thick neck either. It's just the way that it fits my hands, even though I have pretty good size hands. It's just, I don't know. That's what's comfortable to me. But Don had that done, and he had the big double pick guard that I think has become, related to that guitar. Anytime people think about that guitar, it has this huge pick guard that covers, half the top. And that's unusual. And the most unusual part is because Don thinned the neck down. He was concerned that it would bow up. So he put a truss rod in it, or what you could call a truss rod. It looked like a screen door hardware piece of some kind. It was I don't know what the hell this thing was, but it had, in all those Martha White videos with Flat Scruggs, after Earl acquired it in 57, it had a white truss rod cover on the headstock. So anybody that looks at that guitar knows Martin didn't have truss rods. They definitely didn't have a truss rod cover on the headstock. They didn't ever do that. So that's kind of the giveaway that there's something that's been done to this guitar besides the giant pickguard. But Earl started playing it backstage. I guess maybe him and Don were friends. I never really caught the story on how that happened. But he started playing it backstage at the Opry, which would have been at the Ryman at that point in time. And he just loved that thing, and he kept bothering Don to sell it to him. And finally, Don sold it to him in 1957. And I don't know what he paid for it or anything like that. But Earl loved to play fingerstyle guitar. That was primarily what he did, even though he was known as obviously the pioneer of the three-finger Scruggs style banjo. He was a great fingerstyle guitarist, and he loved to play in these high capo positions way up the neck and keep his picks on. And they would do a lot of gospel tunes with Flat Scruggs. And a lot of their guests played it. There's been footage of Mother Maybelle playing this guitar, and Hilo Brown, and all these other stars of the era. And it was just the main guitar that he used. It's one of one, and not everybody is into the lore or the story or whatever. George Gruen called it a piece of memorabilia. And it is that. But if you're a bluegrasser, these guitars are our livelihoods, and all of us have such high reverence for Flat and Scruggs for what they did. And so the guitar was in bad playing condition. I don't know. What I'd heard was that just like I think it got left in the trunk a lot. It was exposed to the elements at times. It had undergone a pretty extensive renovation of sorts in the 80s. When a fellow named Larry Perkins briefly had possession of that guitar. And I think that saved it, but it needed more. It was, not really playable. It would, at least it was, I shouldn't say that. It was playable, but it would not play in tune. There's no way you could have recorded with it. You couldn't get it in tune. The frets were totally wore flat. They had been thinned down so many times that they were barely even there. The fingerboard was really thin up by the nut, and then normal thickness where it meets the body of the guitar. And so it needed more than just a fret job. So I took it to Hugh Hansen, who's a great luthier, and he really turned it into a science. And he worked on it for about a year to be able to get it in good playing condition. And I think it probably plays better now than it ever did when Earl had it. And it had lost that big double pickguard in the early 80s. I guess they were just cheap plastic. And so Charlie Cushman actually sent me some good high quality color photos of that guitar when it had the big pickguards, and they looked black in the Martha White videos, but they were like a tortoise. So Hugh was able to find some celluloid that matched it really good to be able to recreate that and get it back to playing. And it makes its public debut tomorrow at the Ryman, July 15th. So I just think it's so cool, that that's where Earl found the guitar. And I don't know when the last time that it's been on the Ryman stage. Earl died in 2012, I think March of 2012. And I don't know when he would have played it on the Ryman before that, maybe in 2010 or 11. So this is its first time seeing the light of day out in public, at least for quite a while. And we're just the caretakers of the instruments. I'm sure you guys probably talk about that a lot on this podcast.
We do. Yeah. I mean, so 70 years ago, presumably, because this guitar got modified when it was pretty new, is when Earl would have been playing it backstage and trying to plead with Don to buy it.
Right.
Wow. I mean, this sounds like, and probably costs about as much as like trying to renovate a vacation home. How much did you try to keep intact in terms of the neck and the weird truss rod and everything to keep the mojo? Or I guess you didn't even know if the guitar had mojo. You couldn't even play it when you got it.
Well, that was part of the selling point to me. And when you played it down by the nut, it didn't play well at all, and it would buzz. You couldn't put a capo on it on the second fret. It was so bad. But when you played it 7, 8, 9, 10 fret, it had a neat resonance. I mean, it just about made the hair stand up on the back of my head. And I think it was because I'd heard those records so many times, of him playing all these really recognizable songs, from You Are My Flower, to Jimmy Brown, the Newsboy, that was recorded on this guitar. And it was so cool to me that it was full circle, because my granddad played fingerstyle guitar like Earl and really loved Earl, learned to play banjo with Earl's book. And I thought it was pretty amazing that, I thought back, and because Earl played that guitar from 57 to 69 when Platt and Scruggs folded up. And so my granddad learned to play guitar listening to that guitar. So it was a real full circle moment for me. And when I played it up the neck, I understood why Earl liked that thing. It made sense. I was like, okay, this thing does have a really special resonance up here, which is where he played like 90% of his songs. So that was still shining through, even though all the other stuff was, was in rough condition. And I knew that it would be one of those things that I would have to go into open-ended, like, I want to save the fingerboard. I can't save the frets, clearly. I want to save the neck block, even though it had a huge crack in it. And Hugh was able to save the neck block. We saved the original frets and put them in a bag. I'm going to find some way to display those, like maybe put them on a mock-up fingerboard or something like that and have it framed. So we saved the original frets, but we really wanted to save the fingerboard, because it's like, well, that's Earl's DNA, in the fingerboard. And it was really impressive that he was able to thickness that thing back to normal after it had just been shaved down so much, because it was really thin, like I said, on one end and thick on the other. So he did a wonderful job, saved the fingerboard, saved the neck block, got the neck set on the first try, because he told me, to prepare to maybe have to set the neck 2 or 3 times after we got it all back together. And he took hundreds of photos through the process, and he did a really wonderful job. And it really plays great, and it has a neat resonance, and it's playing in tune now. And I think that's what the guitar deserved. I just hated the thought of seeing, I just knew if I didn't get it, I would never see it again. It would go away. I didn't know who would get it, but it would probably go to a museum or some rich guy and never be played. And I just thought, well, I'm kind of in a unique position living here in Nashville that I can get a lot of my friends to play it and share this guitar and have it make more music, because it's such an important instrument for us bluegrassers. So I felt like it was kind of my duty to do it. And I was just lucky to be there, the right place and the right time to be able to buy it. And then, my other career has been in real estate, mostly agricultural properties, but I enjoy renovating properties and trying to find the best use of those. I am not a developer, but I do try to find the best use of things and look at it and think, well, 50 or 100 years from now, will somebody be looking at something that we did that was a legal repair on a deed or an access issue or something like that? Will somebody look at this and think that we did a good job and say, well, I'm glad that they did that, that this is making things easier for us in the future. I'm glad that this was preserved, because a lot of what I do is conservation. Um, and I kind of looked at the instrument in the same way. It's like buying a house that needs a bunch of renovation, like you said, like a condo that needs a big renovation. Um, and that was kind of my specialty. And so I just thought, well, this is what this seems like the role for me to take on. And I searched around Nashville to find the right repairman, and Hugh was that guy. And that's one of those deals. It's like you just have to go in open minded and say, okay, I don't know what this is going to cost. I don't know how long this is going to take, but we want it fixed right. We want this preserved so that the guitar will still be here after we're gone, and still making music. And so I don't know what'll happen to it after my ownership, but the guitar will undoubtedly continue on. And so I thought it was important to try to preserve it.
And you kept the skinny neck and everything.
I love the skinny neck. Yeah.
Hugh Hansen is not someone I don't think we've covered. And we've talked to Joe Glazer. We've talked to a bunch of Nashville, kind of luthiers over the years. Can you tell me where he works out of? And is he sort of the guy all the locals go to for their guitar repair?
He is. I did not know him personally, but we had a lot of mutual acquaintances. He's on the west side of Nashville, over towards like Whites Creek area. Got a really nice shop there at his home, and he builds mandolins. And his name just kept coming up. I took it to a couple people, and I think I got one quote that was like, I think we can probably do this for $2,000 or $3,000. I don't think so. I think it's a bigger job than that.
You got to be scared of that one.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think you're just gonna slap some frets on this thing and it's gonna be okay. I mean, because there was, once Hugh took it apart, you could move with your hands the neck block. I mean, and it had a huge gap between the neck block and the top, undoubtedly affecting the sound of it. So Hugh's name just kept coming up. I took it to him, and he's got lowers and pre-war herringbones and a lot of very well-known guitarists named, on cases in there. And so his reputation preceded him, and he shot me straight on it. He said, this might take me a year. I don't know. This is a big undertaking. And he also had the courage to do it because living in Music City, that's a high profile instrument, and he knows everyone's going to be looking at his work.
It's true.
So I felt like it was, you got to have somebody that's got quite a high degree of confidence in their own abilities. And he took hundreds of photos in this shared album that I shared with several other folks along the way, which I thought was really important in the preservation of this instrument. Yeah. To be able to share those photos through the years, to see what he did. Some of the photos would kind of make your stomach turn a little bit just to see what had to happen to the guitar. But he took it to a science, man. I'm not a woodworker, and so I didn't even really know what I'm looking at times. I know how guitars are constructed and how you adjust this and that, but I shared it with some other friends of mine to kind of hold my hand along the way to explain to me what I was looking at. I do the same thing in construction because I have a certain niche, and then I don't know, some of the other parts of construction. I don't always know what I'm looking at. I have a trained eye for some things, but not for everything. And so what he did was really in depth, man. And he's got everything from measurements of the top, and all the top thicknesses everywhere, just to highly document his work. It was really impressive, the degree of care that he took in it. And I think he had 120 hours of labor on it.
Amazing. You if you want, share some of those photos with me. I'd love to share them when we do
Oh
this
yeah,
podcast. Show us the gory ones. People love to see a car accident on the side of the road.
Well, so the goriest one is that the double pickguard really saved us in terms of the appearance of the guitar, because where the neck meets the body, to get that neck block out, because the neck block's got the serial number on it, and you'll see in these photos I shared with you, it had a huge crack in it. But to get that out, he actually had to cut a thin strip on either side of the fretboard, cut a thin strip out of the top. Those 50s D18s also have a lateral brace that runs right, behind where the fretboard meets the body. That is a little overkill. You don't really need that. So he cut through that brace and then cut a thin strip out of the top to get the neck block out, to make the repairs to the neck block. And then when he puts it back in, he had to match that. And man, he matched the grain and everything on the spruce. I don't know where the wood came from or what he got, but he took these little thin strips, and it fit so seamlessly the way that he did it. But obviously, there's no way you'd ever get the finish to match on that. So the big double pickguard saved us, because all that repair was concealed. That was the goriest, because you're sitting here looking at this guitar that's ratchet strapped to a table of some sort, and it's got this router just eating away on it,
Yeah, that is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
A lot of bluegrass guitarists have like their one guitar. Obviously, Tony Rice did. We've been watching Jake Eddy shuffle through guitars for the last 2 years trying to find his one guitar. Did you have like one guitar before this one in terms of what you played? Okay, and what is it?
I have a 2001 Santa Cruz Vintage Artist. Mm-hmm. And that's my main guitar, and has been for years. And it's just an awesome guitar that seems to fit really good for what I do, and fits the band really good. And I've been playing it ever since I switched to guitar in the band. So number of years now. And it's nothing fancy. But Richard Hoover makes really good guitars, and that I've just had it all these years, and I can't seem to find anything else that is more comfortable for me.
And that's the guitar when you're going on the road for 100 shows that gets played every time.
That's the one I fly with, go to all the road dates with. I've recorded on the last 2 albums with, and it needs a lot of. It has to go into the shop every so often to get work done on it. In general, it's been really great. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And do you have any unique string or pick setup or anything that you do?
I have to use coated strings, partly just because of the road environment I'm in. My hands sweat a little bit, and we just play so much that normal strings just seem to go dead almost immediately. So I like elixirs. I like the Diodario coated string. I have a K&K pickup. I run a Grace preamp. I run a Neumann pickup mic, or a Neumann clip-on mic, and we run two channels. We have our own front of house guy that's able to blend those depending on the venue. And I use medium strings. I like blue chip picks, and I'm a fairly heavy-handed guitar player. So that's what I liked about the Santa Cruz. Is the Santa Cruz is a pretty loud guitar, and it's nice and balanced. Sometimes I found that the Rosewood is a little boomy. And now that we have our own front of house guy, it's probably not a big issue, but like a lot of times, like I have a 67 D35 that was my granddad's, and there's been places I've taken it because those have that 3-piece back, when they were kind of running out of the Brazilian Rosewood. And certain places on a microphone, that guitar will get a little boomy. The sound guy won't know how to do it, or won't know how to deal with it. But that's kind of my backup guitar. When the Santa Cruz, if it's getting worked on or something, that's the one that I play. And I've played it on the Opry, but I've not played it on any recordings with the band.
Okay. Did you watch that blue chip video the Wall Street Journal did that somehow I ended up in?
I did not. I'm not a subscriber to the Journal anymore.
Oh, it's just on their YouTube.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'll have to check it out. I did subscribe to the Journal, and I found it kind of humorous. If you ever go to try to unsubscribe, you have to like call this number.
Oh
And,
yeah. Classic
you know,
magazine newspaper move. Yeah.
yeah, it's classic move because you tell them you want to cancel and they're like, oh no. So,
I say
but
this
yeah,
as a magazine publisher. So yeah.
well, I'll definitely check it out because yeah, I did read the headline, but I never looked into the article, but I do love those picks.
Yeah. Cool. So, how does this guitar? I know you said when you played it up the neck that you heard Earl, or you heard the memories. Like, how does this guitar, hot rodded back in the day, fixed up in 2025 by someone who knew what they were doing? Like, how does it sound sonically compared to like your Santa Cruz?
It's different, even though they're both mahogany guitars. It is loud. Um, and I just started recording with it. I'm working on my first solo project.
Oh, cool.
This going to be kind of a tribute of sorts. So I've recorded 2 days in the studio with it. Me playing it some, and then Corey Walker played it some as well. And man, it records. It's really fun to play. It records really well, and which is another kind of revealing thing. I could understand why Earl liked it because it's one of those guitars that almost sounds better out front than it does while you're playing it. And it has a really amazing clarity. It really does. It's been special to get to record with it, and I'm going to try to have as many guests as I can get on this album because I can play mandolin and I can sing, and I don't have to play guitar on every track, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to get as many guests as I can on it to try to showcase all the different ways that it can sound. Because I think with the exception of a few tunes, mostly heard Earl playing up the neck, but it sounds good all over the place now, man. And like I said, when we were working on this thing, Hugh said, I kind of feel sorry for Earl because I don't think it ever played as good as it will now.
Well, that album sounds really cool. You have to keep us posted on that. We'll
I will. Yeah, I will.
Or do a story or something.
Would love to.
So I know because we were talking a little bit before we recorded that, All God's Children was the lion's share of the work was done a while ago. So I was going to ask if this guitar is on that record. I'm guessing the Earl guitar was not finished.
I did own it during this production, but I had just gotten it, and I didn't keep it very long at the house before I sent it off for repairs. I kind of debated I might have owned it for 6 weeks before I finally took it into repairs because it wasn't even very fun to play around the house, And I just thought, well, I know this is going to take a long time. I may as well go ahead and bite the bullet and just do it.
Yeah. Has Grun seen it since you've done all this work after he just called it a piece of memorabilia? No.
Yeah, George was, I've known George a long time, and he's quite a character, as everyone knows. I would like to take it back to him and show him, what we did to it, because his response was pretty amusing. I didn't actually buy it the same day. I looked at it on a Saturday, and I played it for like an hour. And I asked George when I was leaving, I said, "What do you think about this Scruggs guitar?" And he said, "Is it a really great D18? No, but it's more of a piece of memorabilia. And will the Scruggs family take less money? The answer is no." So I ended up leaving that day and called one of my really good friends who's instrument collector and picker and big Flat and Scruggs fan. And we talked for almost an hour. And he kind of pushed me over the edge. And so I texted the sales guy, Ben Ritchie, who I've been working with over there. I said, I think I'm going to have to take it.
Yeah.
And it was Saturday. Banks were closed. He said, "Cool." He said, "It's yours until Tuesday morning." He said, "You have Monday to get together the payment details." I said, "Okay, well, send me wire info and we'll get it handled."
Yeah. Yeah. George can be a little skeptical. So after all the work you've put into this guitar, you probably may want to wait a while before you hand it to him and he writes it off or something.
Yeah. They had it for a while and I was a little shocked that it hadn't sold. And I'm obviously glad for that now because I just thought for sure that it would sell. And after I sold, I had a number of people coming and, trying to purchase it from me because it's one of those that like money follows money sometimes, and when there's no good historical comp, the guitar had been sold since 57, you don't really know what it's worth, and there's nothing like it. And sometimes when somebody pounces on it, it's, there's a little bit of FOMO that sets in with other folks. It's like, well, I was thinking about that, and now the opportunity's gone.
Of course. Yeah. It happens all the time. So let's talk about the new record though. Well, I got you. All God's Children. It's coming out in August. What can you tell me about it? And talk about the title too. I want to know everything.
Well, it's a collection of a lot of original music from us, a few covers as well, which is typically always our brand. We're always trying to mix new and old music, and then bring in writers and folks that we know as well, that are in our circle. And I think everybody got good representation on it. There's 4 lead singers on it. All 5 of us wrote songs on it. And we started on it in spring of last year and finished it towards the end of the year. And the title cut is one of the songs that I'm singing, a song that Harry Clark wrote with Christian Ward and Corey Walker. And I think it was kind of Burning Man influenced. It was kind of about a story that Harry had when he went to Burning Man one time years ago.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of where the initial seed was planted. And they actually had we were going through material, and him and Christian and Corey had been writing a lot in 2023. And so they had a very different version of it, but I kind of imagined it the way that it is, and asked them if they would let me sing it. And they did. And we just loved the way that it turned out. And there's 4 other singles. The first of which came out in May, which was a tune that I wrote with Christian Ward, which was Maddie's first single, a song called Following You. And we were glad to be able to get her. She's been singing on the sets for all these years. So we were glad to be able to get her first single. And then Harry wrote a song called Bend in the Road, which came out last month. And then in a couple of weeks, we have a song that I'm singing called Lonesome Song, which is written by the very talented Chris Henry, wonderful mandolin player and guitarist. So that's, I think, 3 singles. I don't know what the 4th offhand. I think there might be a 4th single, but I can't remember what it is. But it's 10 songs. It's on Mountain Fever Records, which is the same label we've worked with. This is our 2nd record with them. And we're just excited to finally get it out there and let everybody hear. It's been almost 2 years since our last album came out. And at this point in our career, you just got to keep churning out records, just keep churning out music
and merch.
Both, indeed. Yeah. So we're excited to get it out there. We'll have it on vinyl as well. We'll have it on compact disc for anybody that still even has one of those players.
Wow. Yeah.
And all of the artwork was done by my friend Tom Britt. So I love being able to use folks that are in our circle or in our network here in Nashville to do all the production of things. And Tom is a really wonderful slide guitarist who worked for Vince Gill and Patty Loveless for a number of years. And then I met him working at, at Dee's. He played every Sunday there with a gal named Jonelle Mosser and the Taj Mahalics for a number of years. And Tom is this amazing slide guitarist, and everything he plays is very orchestral. He does all these dadgad and open tunings on electric guitar, and just plays so beautifully in tune and amazing and so tastefully. He sounds like 2 guitarists at once. And he's also an incredible painter. He's kind of retired from playing guitar, and he's mostly just painting, and he's a very prolific artist. And I have some of his paintings hanging here in my house. And I showed his work to the band, and everybody just loved it. So we had him paint the cover, which was, it's like, listen to the record, and then knowing that it's kind of about Burning Man, paint something, and he painted this really cool cover piece that I actually paid for myself. I bought it myself, and it's hanging in my office. And then the inside of the artwork and so forth for the album is also all Tom's work. Mm-hmm. So it was a neat way to kind of tie together the D's community with him being another artist that I met there. and had worked there for a number of years to showcase some of his other talent as well.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of the bluegrass fans seeing you at festivals throughout the summer are presuming All God's Children is not about Burning Man. I think you guys are just really spiritual.
Sure. And we do some gospel and spiritual music. That is a part of our show. And I was a little concerned from a branding standpoint because that was my first inclination, was to call the album that. And I was a little concerned about that at first, but I thought, you know what, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I think people will figure out pretty quick that it's not a gospel record and we're not a gospel band. And it just kind of is what it is.
The cover is awesome. I love the cover.
Thank you. Yeah. Tom's so talented, and he listened to it in a day and turned that around, and painted it in the same day. And he was so talented, but yeah, I thought that was kind of amusing, really, to call it that and not be a gospel record. So it's a little tongue in cheek, which has kind of been an important part of our brand all along.
Yeah, I love it. Well, final question. You seem like such a community builder. If somebody were to go to Nashville in 2025, where's the best place to see bluegrass? Is it still the Monday nights?
It's still D's, I'd have to say, because there's plenty of parking, and you can park in the back row right behind the adult bookstore if D's parking lot is full.
Pro tip there.
There's 5 Mexican restaurants that are right there on the corner next to D's. Of course, the Station Inn, always a great place. I still get to play there every now and then. East Nashgrass doesn't get to play there really anymore because, once you get on the road, you don't really get to play in your hometown very much. And now that we're playing the Ryman, that one kind of takes precedence where we can't even play D's or anything anymore. So I would always recommend those places. The American Legion has a bluegrass jam, American Legion Post 82 in Inglewood, which is kind of East Nashville. They have a jam every Wednesday night. And there's still several really great spots that music is going on. I don't get to go out very much anymore. Life comes at you fast and changes quick. And it's like we really started touring about 3 years ago, and each year just getting busier and busier. And we might have 1 weekend a month that we're off. And, it's honestly, we're always busy playing catch up, doing other things. So I don't get to really be part of the scene like I used to be, but I would recommend those 3 places for sure. And definitely D's. Any night of the week has got great music going on.
Right. I love it. James, thanks so much for talking. I look forward to seeing the photos, and maybe I'll see you when you guys come through Seattle in just a couple of weeks here.
Yeah, just a few weeks. Tractor Tavern in Seattle.
Totally. All right.
Thanks
so much,
Jason. I appreciate it. Well, I'll share those with you, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
All right. That was James. I hope you enjoyed it. Their new record is called All God's Children. It comes out August 22nd. And what a cool story. I'm going to be sharing some photos of the guitar and its restoration on the Fretboard Journal page for this podcast. So please go check that out, or follow us over on our Instagram, and I'll do the same there. Till next time.